going to check if everything is working properly. Yes, it is. I think I can see on this tab on YouTube that things are catching up. Super. Awesome. Everybody, welcome. This is Vincent speaking. And over the next, how long is this going to be? 20 minutes. I'm going to take you through the upcoming Floorwork teacher training, which I could have called the Floorwork Intensive Online Training, because it is pretty much the same, that you are aware of, that I have been talking about. This is not a public presentation. It's actually a private presentation, just for those of you who have been receiving my emails, my students, and my friends. So this is also the chance for us to interact directly. If you have any question, I'm going to try to go over all the details that are a bit hard to explain through emails. But if you have any question that I don't cover, please feel free to use the comment section. So on YouTube, if you go either on your right side or down below the screen, you should be able to find the comment section. And if you write your questions or anything you want to write there, it should display on my screen as well. So that's the whole point, to have more of an intimate, if I may say, chat and presentation over this training, which is starting next week. And then maybe on Monday, I will do a more public version of that, but that still remains to be seen. So I'm going to share with you my screen, and I'm going to go over, I'm not going to talk so much about the way I structure Floorwork, for instance, or who I am, where I come from, because you know all that. And chances are, if you are here, you would have seen some of my tutorials before, and you know how I teach, and you know the gist of all that. It's more about how is this going to transfer into that more serious, intensive training. So sharing with you my screen, and then I will try to make that video available later on as well, if you need to pause, and for all the people who live on a different continent and couldn't make it at that time as well. So without further ado, let's move on. So let's start with who this is for. And I invite you to stay until the end, because at the end I will just talk about the questions. And I will also reward those of you who have stayed until the end of this presentation. I will show you also behind the scenes, so how the actual platform looks like, everything that's inside it. But let's start with for whom this is for. When I designed that training, it took even more time than expected, because I wanted it to be very thorough, but also I wanted people from different backgrounds to be able to attend it and get just as much out of it as possible. And so the thing that I start usually saying is that this is meant for both beginners and professionals and anyone in between. Now, how is that possible? This is what I would like to explain right now. The idea, this is a teacher training, so it's meant to be as thorough and detailed as possible. And we'll talk later about whether or not you need to want to teach to take it, and the short answer is no. But it's meant for both beginners and professionals, because I cannot assume any kind of background, any kind of prerequisite, any kind of foundation from anyone who takes a training. We have to start from scratch if I am to expect certain standards at the end of the 12 weeks that this training is going to take. This is awesome for complete beginners or people who have been playing with things here and there, following a few tutorials and fluffing around, because it actually gives us a syllabus, a structure, a step-by-step process to follow and to learn Floorwork and ground-based movement from. This is the kind of syllabus I wish I had 10 years ago when I started, and it's just very hard / impossible to find when it comes to ground-based movements, and that's pretty much why I've been dedicating the last 5 years around structuring all this. But it's also meant for professionals who are either using some form of ground-based movement in their practice, or actually willing to teach Floorwork down the line. For instance, in the last edition, the previous group we had, We had a couple of people who had never really tried to learn Floorwork seriously. We had a couple of people who had tried a few Floorwork tutorials, and we had people all the way to professional contemporary dancers who were really familiar with the content. And the way we managed to satisfy everyone is that if you're a bit more experienced, starting from scratch allows you, should I say, to diagnose where your foundations are a bit flimsy. For instance, you can be very good at shoulder rolling, but then not so good at holding a handstand or holding your weight on your elbows or whatever it is that you are into. And we just going step by step, make sure that we can identify and pin down where your strengths are and what needs to be prioritized in your training. And that's mainly through, first, the curriculum, which will include elements that are beginner friendly and more experience friendly, if I should say, or a bit more spicy, as I call it, the spice box, but also, and even more importantly, through the individualized coaching. So that's how we manage to really answer everybody's needs. And it worked perfectly with the first group that started on January. And you'll be surprised to see how people who are a bit more advanced learn, how much they learn out of beginners. It's just very interesting to see how a group can drive even more momentum than I thought it would, and how people learn not only from my coaching, not only from the curriculum, but also from each other. Now, it's meant, I called it teacher training because I thought about what they do in yoga. In yoga, they have this thing, these teacher trainings, which are assessed with the number of hours you're going through, but which are not necessarily geared towards people who only want to teach. And the reality is, I know a lot of people who went through these intensives or long seminars, I think it's sometimes 1 month or longer, of teacher training in yoga, just because they really wanted to find the most structured way to take their practice to the next level. And I thought to myself, well, this is exactly what I want for Floorwork. I want to create a training that will allow everyone to take it deeper. If you're a beginner, to really have all the foundations that you need. Wherever you come from, to have all the foundations that you need to be able to teach. That means to really master all the contents that I have designed and structured in that syllabus. So if you're a teacher, that's the perfect way to know how I would structure a class, structure a macro cycle, structure a mesocycle, and ensure that your students are progressing as much as possible. And if you're not a specialized teacher, it's a perfect way to integrate some form of floor-based movement into your teachings. If you don't intend on teaching, then that's absolutely no problem. The goal is for you to have all the tools you need to train smarter, and we'll talk a bit more about this in a few minutes. Now, finally, I said this is for both specialists and generalists, as in, if you want to make Floorwork your main practice, then this is for you. But if Floorwork is just yet another element of a broader movement practice, then this is also for you. Because again, the idea is to be very efficient with the way we train. I hate to train reps for reps' sake. I like to find the shortest path towards my students' goals. And therefore, whether you have 1 hour per week to dedicate to your training after this course or 4 hours per day, it doesn't matter, because we will go to the most efficient way to train when it comes to Floorwork. So that's for whom it is. Now, basically, if you have a strong interest in Floorwork, and many of you here, again, this is not a public presentation, would have known me through YouTube, you know how I teach and you know what you can expect out of these tutorials. What you need to have is 4 square meters, pretty much, of floor, and we'll talk a bit more about this when it comes to your question, but ideally you want 4 square meters. It doesn't have to be in a square shape, but it allows you to have enough space to move around, because Floorwork is a bit more space consuming. You cannot do that in an airplane, for instance. You need a bit more you need a bit of space to be able to do that comfortably, as well as a wall, just a sturdy wall to practice against. When it comes to the handstands, it can be a tree, it can be something else, a wall outside of your house, whatever it is, a wall to practice a bit your handstands. And then in terms of time commitments, don't get me wrong, this is an intensive course for 12 weeks, and you need to have 4 hours per week. You need to have 4 hours per week to watch tutorials and each module that will be released on a weekly basis. You need to have this time to watch the feedback I will give you personally to know what to prioritize, to know what to fix, to know what to improve, to know maybe if you're more advanced or if you have understood something very quickly, to know how to take this to the next level, you personally. And then to record yourself as well and to send me what we could call, quote unquote, the homework. Because every week I will review the homework to ensure to give you as much feedback as possible. And I don't think that we can really progress without that. And I don't understand how this is not just me sending you a text through a WhatsApp group saying, well, just do this and that, or through a Facebook group. This is me, and I will show you that going almost frame by frame through your homework, the homework you will send me every week, and telling you, well, this you can improve, this is perfect. And of course, watching this will take some time that we have to factor in, and that's why I'm saying 4 hours per week would be a good start. It doesn't have to be 4 hours in one day. It can be split in many different sessions. I'm going to talk about this in just a minute. Now, to give you an idea of who takes part to this kind of training, here is a small, well, here are videos actually of my students, whom you're going to see move now very well on the floor. I'm not going to talk because I think that the music can be heard on your side of things. I'm going to pause just here. So again, anyone who has a strong interest, from the beginner to the professional, who wants to be a teacher or not, what matters is that you want to dive deep. Now, you don't have to belong to the 4 categories of people I have mentioned here, but it's just to give you an idea of who usually comes to this training, who have attended before. First, as I was saying, complete beginners or fake beginners, beginners plus, as we sometimes call them. That is, people who don't think they are improvers or intermediates just yet, but who have tried things here and there, maybe attended a workshop, who are not complete beginners with movements. Whether you're completely starting, completely new to this or not, I would call that complete beginners with Floorwork. Then we have teachers, and it can be teachers, it can be dance teachers, but not only. We have martial art teachers, we have fitness instructors, sometimes who come from the GMB world, sometimes from the animal flow world, as well as any kind of practice that has an element of floor, which is a lot of practices, including pole dance and aerials. Then we have a bunch of people, of course, who come from the movement culture wider universe and who have grown an interest in locomotion and moving on the floor and crawling, and want to take, and maybe with the help of people, of the famous people out there like Ido, and who want to take this to the next level. What do we do past the monkey crawl? What do we do past the lizard crawl? How do we develop as well a more well-rounded practice, including elements of flow work? And finally, I've noticed that a lot of people with a strong, or not necessarily strong, but a practice or a strong practice, or even teaching yoga, tend to attend these courses and tend to have an interest in flow work, because it's a nice way to either diversify what we do and to open new horizons when it comes to transitioning from one shape to the other. So having worked with people, including in person a few years ago already, with people who were yoga teachers, we have found that flow work was a great way for us to bring a bit more fluidity and a bit more options when it came to moving from one position to the other, and or to create your own hybrid movement practice out of it. Now, moving on, what to expect out of this. I'm going to set myself here on the side, but I think it's going to hide a bit. Yes, this slide, which is all good. So my goal as your coach, your teacher for this course is first, obviously, to make you familiar / master the flow work vocabulary. That's what I mean by having a strong vocabulary, something that you can be confident with, movements that you can use to create your own phrases, to create your own workouts, to improvise if that's your thing as well. And there is an important distinction here that I would like to make, which is a usable versus a fundamental vocabulary. I want us to have some usable vocabulary, that is things that you won't forget next week. And if you have attended a dance class before or a movement class, you may have noticed that it's all well when we are in the class, but then as the days pass by, as the weeks and the months sometimes pass by, we tend to forget what we learned. And that's not usable to me. The goal is not for you to imagine that Floorwork is a language. The goal is not for you to open a dictionary and learn randomly a few words and pray for them to just stick with you. We need to be able to reuse them. And for that, we need to be able to select carefully which words we're going to learn first, so that we learn the ones that we are the most likely to create our first sentences with. You don't learn the most complex word that nobody uses anymore. You learn the ones whose roots will open the doors to other words. That's the idea. And that's the idea behind a strong vocabulary. And through different tools, research tools, exploration tools, integration tools, we will make sure that you can use that vocabulary whenever you want and that it stays with you. Then, if you're here, you know that Floorwork is about moving smoothly across the floor. And we will study what I have really spent my life on that floor researching, which is the rules of Floorwork. My teaching methods, as you may be aware of if you have watched any of my videos before, or if we have worked together before, is never about me saying, just do the same way, just do what I do, and it will happen, because it doesn't work this way. Teaching has to be, in my opinion, individualized. And it's not just about, again, I want you to save you the 1,000 reps that people, sometimes professionals, have the time to do. I want us to get there faster. And how do we get to a smooth, efficient movement faster? By applying a very specific set of rules, what I have coined as being the golden rules of Floorwork. And so we will study them so that whatever words, whatever movements we learn, we can apply the rules to them and move with efficiency. I was about to say immediately move with efficiency, but that's not true. It takes a bit of practice, conscious practice, awareness to see what we have to pay attention to for the sake of moving better. And that's going to be a huge part of this training. Then smart programming. That's the idea behind being able to teach even if you don't want to teach. How can we design training sessions that are smart, that will make sure that the vocabulary we learn stays with us and becomes usable, that will make sure that we become smoother and more fluid in the way we move week after week, and not just through mindless reps. That's what matters to me. And the way we're going to structure that is going to be relevant for you for your own training sessions. And if you intend on teaching or already are a teacher, this is going to be helpful for you to design your own classes week after week, month after month, and year after year, depending on how long you follow your students for. And then there's a host of, which is the things we can't really see here on the screen. I'm going to put it this way, a host of physical benefits you can derive from moving on the floor through Floorwork. Of course, you're going to become stronger, more coordinated, and it's going to be challenging in a good way sometimes when it comes to coordination. And by moving through different range of motions and not just statically stretching, you will also get more mobile and more supple quite quickly. We can talk about resiliency as well in the way we learn to break fall and to approach the floor through different angles in our hips and our toes and our knees. There's a host of benefits, including, I had a student reporting from the previous group reporting some beautiful things happening around her spine, which I didn't expect, but surely I was very happy to hear about. Something I wouldn't promise because, of course, it's not for everyone, but just to hear that finding a new way of approaching the floor can be so restorative sometimes and healthy, always kind of confirms my beliefs around how viable this practice can be. And again, we will talk about how to make sure that this practice stays as viable as possible for everyone individually. But for sure, you will get stronger and more flexible out of that. That's no surprise. Now, all this being said, the way we're going to structure it over the 12 weeks we're going to spend together, starting next Saturday, For the first 4 to 6 weeks, we will acquire new vocabulary, a new terminology, these golden rules I was talking about. And we're going to start integrating them, cementing the foundations from week 5 to week 8, roughly. This is a rough idea of how we're going to structure the training. So we learn a lot of new movements in the first few weeks, and then we make sure that they become usable. We make sure that no stone is left unturned. And when we get to the end of the training, we try to achieve a level of mastery, which is really what the point is behind this teacher training. If you can teach me how to move, then you have mastered the movement and you have completely understood what was beyond the movement. And that's what this third design part is about: how to program, as I was saying, your own training sessions, and or how to program properly if you were to teach me or a student what you have learned. Now, the 4 main reasons why this training exists in the first place, and I think it's important for me to go over that to really give you the scope of what I've been trying to achieve through it, because that really, it's not just yet another new training, it's the one training I want to keep growing and evolving. And the moment you get access to the platform, it stays with you, you have lifetime access to it, and it keeps growing, and the new resources I upload to it are yours as well, even if I upload them in 6 years. First, I think there was a need for a thorough curriculum. I've been looking for one myself when I started Floorwork, and I couldn't find one. So you have to jump from one class to the other, from one teacher to the other, from one workshop to the other, and you have to make your own soup. This is extremely time-consuming, and sometimes people say contradicting things, and they don't have the same words, and there's not even a word to qualify such and such movement. I was like, wow, this is a mess. I'm a linguist myself. I used to be a linguist myself, despite the accent, believe it or not. And I like the grammar, I like the rules that you have to follow, because this is how we learn fast when we are not immersed in the country. And so because there was a lack of that, I kind of created a syllabus I wish I had had myself when I started 10 years ago. Then there was a demand from both teachers and non-teachers who said, well, I wish there was a program I could just follow to take my teaching to the next level, or to teach such and such to my students, or just to get started properly with Floorwork instead of just jumping from one tutorial to the other. So that's the idea behind the plug and play program. I said there's the YouTube logo here. The goal is also to start inviting people within my teaching world, which is, I know you resonate with the way I teach, because otherwise you wouldn't be here. And in this program, I'm not just going to give you another video. I'm also going to invite you to think the way I think movement, which I think is one of the strengths of the curriculum and one of my own strengths as a teacher. I like to use analogies. I like to be individualized with the way I teach every one of my students, and I like to save them the time that they could, quote unquote, waste. Just imagine you trying to learn handstand. You can waste a lot of hours, days, years, just kicking up against the wall until it sticks. It's the same with Floorwork. There are catalysts that I have spent time identifying, and I want to give them to you so that you can save yourself the time of finding them. And then we don't quite see it here, but nor can we see it here. I think unless you have a big screen, it reads handstands and Floorwork and QDR being the elbow lever. I've never had a training. I've always had specialized training. That is, I've taught handstands here and Floorwork there, and QDRs there, and acrobatics here. And I wanted to create a platform in which I could put everything, because even if everyone that learns handstands doesn't necessarily have an interest in Floorwork, certainly anyone who has an interest in moving on the floor has an interest in handstands and has an interest in QDR. And so instead of having different courses in different silos, I wanted to create one big platform that would govern them all, if I should say. And that's where this teaching training comes from. Now, briefly, you may have, and that's kind of one of the questions already I have received, you may have read that this was a first level. And indeed, for 12 weeks, we are going to cover what's in the syllabus can be thought of as being a first level. It doesn't mean that I am hooking you in a syllabus in which you're going to have to do all 4 levels. As you can see here, there's Floorwork Core Level 1, which is what we're talking about, and then Floorwork Core Level 2, Specialized Teacher Level 3, Specialized Teacher Level 4. This doesn't quite matter. I have the option for you to continue learning because, of course, can we learn a whole dictionary in just 12 weeks? No. But can we learn enough to be able to be fluent? Yes. And that's the idea behind this. At the end of the training, you can absolutely decide to say, you know what, this was amazing. I'm going to take the next 50 years to digest what I've learned. The goal is not for you to stay. The goal is for you to give you as much as possible within the 12 weeks. And then, of course, if you want to carry on, because there's always more vocabulary and phrases and games and drills that I come up with, there's always more to learn. If you want to carry on, you can. And there is another level for that. So first thing first, this level 1. Everyone has to go through it, even if they're professionals, because again, there's so much to get out of it. And trust me, you can ask in the forum the professional dancers who have gone through the first edition of Floorwork Teacher Training Level 1. They're all raving about it for a reason. Even if you can move, doesn't mean you won't get anything out of it. Quite the opposite. For this first level, as you can see, there's 4 main pillars around this training. The curriculum I just talked about, the certification at the end, which is an exam that we take together, and I will talk a bit more about this when we get to the question in just 2 minutes. There's an onboarding call, and that's important. It's a way for me to help you split. Remember I said you needed 4 hours per week? It's a way for me to help you split your training according to your schedule, to make sure that you have all the time in the world to practice comfortably. I don't want you to be running to catch that train, if you will. I want you to be comfortable. It will be challenging at times, but comfortably learning and growing week after week. And that's why we have an initial call starting next week. Just to find out where you come from as well, your movement practices, if you have any limitations, if you have any injury. These are things I don't want to assume, and I need to know as your coach, because I'm going to be coaching every participant individually. It's not just a group of 20 people and good luck with a PDF. And that's maybe a little drawing about the general idea. You may have heard of the isolation, integration, improvisation model that Ido made famous, which I think is a good start, but certainly incomplete when it comes to Floorwork only. And this model could be applied here, that you can see on screen, can be applied to level 1 and to the 4 levels in general. We, yes, learn movements in isolation. We try to bring them together through sequences and phrases, and that's the integration. Then we move to improvisation, but we also try to develop this individual skills. We try to double down on your individual strengths. If you have any kind of background, there's no need for us. Let's say you've done calisthenics before, then we can use that strength to develop your own style of floor work. If you've done yoga, you can use your flexibility and your mobility to develop your own kind of strength. It's not about you becoming just like me. It's about me giving you the tools to become the floor work mover, if I may say, that you can be. And between that, there's a lot of research. There is a lot of lectures and thoughts around how we can move with efficiency and following rules that would pertain to the world of biomechanics. All of this is the common thread between every single level of this teacher training, which again, you don't have to think of it as the 4 levels for now. What matters to us is level 1. Okay, we're getting close to the question. The one thing I want to show you, of course, I'm not saying of course, because I don't think that this is done by anyone else. And I'm not saying this to brag. I'm saying this is why I can work with only so many people at the same time. So let me show you this. And I'm going to put myself in here. So I was saying that within your 4 hours, you want to take the time to train and record yourself and send me the videos of your training in any given week. And as you can see here, this is pretty much what will happen. I won't send you a summary of a few lines saying, this is what you should work on. I'm going to show you on the screen as I watch your homework what I see. so that you can exactly know what you have to improve, so that you can progress faster. Here, for instance, it's an example of the handstand practice of any given module. It was week 9. We can read on the screen. And I'm showing the student what she has to do with her feet to make sure that she stays close to the wall, for instance. I'm going to do exactly that, but for everything, whether it's QDR, handstands, or floor work, mainly floor work, of course, showing you personally what is happening in your own body. This is going to allow you to progress faster. It's also going to allow you to understand the logic of this better, which goes back to smart programming. Again, very, very, very individualized. You can expect, quite a few, 12 videos just for yourself, which won't be 5 minutes long, I can tell you that much. And that's why we need 4 hours, by the way. Okay, let's move on to the actual platform. I'm going to show you around the platform so that you know what you get access when you sign up to this teacher training. Here. Okay, so this is the platform you get access to, and you also get access to a forum in which you can ask all the questions you want, and I'm answering them on a daily basis, except in the weekends. And as you can see, you have all the modules, as well as resources that I will keep adding to every edition of this teacher training, as I was saying, even in 6 years. And every week we have a new module being released that builds up on what has been seen previously. So we can check, for instance, module 2 here. We have a small presentation followed by a lot of videos that you will have lifetime access to that will take you through. For instance, here, this is an exploration drill. This is the explanation of how we can classify our movement vocabulary. We have warm-up drills. We can isolate. I've segregated the vocabulary in 2 big parts. One is the floor movements, and the other is the tripod movements. That is, whenever the pelvis is off the floor, we're going to call that a tripod form of movement. Okay. As you can see, video links to a private tutorial on my YouTube channel, only you will have access to, that talks you through different steps that you have to follow to learn such and such movement. We have transitions, we have phrases, sequences, inversion. The inversion section is dedicated to handstands and soft acrobatics and QDRs, as well as I was saying, the spice box. For those of you who are a bit more advanced, that's where I am proposing more advanced and complex variations to play with that are on the same topic that we have been covering in that module, but just a bit more advanced. And if you're a complete beginner, then that's also yours. Whenever you finish the 12 weeks and you feel like you can go back over what you have seen in module 2, the more advanced variation that you couldn't quite do at the time, then you can go back to that. So again, it says 12 weeks, but really you have enough material to go on for weeks and months after the end of the training. If anything, this is quite comprehensive, and I've been known to maybe give more than enough than the other way around. So this is how it looks. And then, as I was saying, comes week 6, 7, and 8, we start to improvise a bit more, to integrate a bit more, to research a bit more. And comes module 9, 10, and 12, 11, we start talking about how we can program and design classes and design smart training sessions. You will have access to this. You will have access to your to the forum, as I was saying, in which you can interact with all the other members and you can interact with me directly. Now, the last part I wanted to show you was the schedule. Because yes, you can interact and ask all the questions. I'm gonna get back to you as soon as I can whenever I see it, but then, which is usually within 24 hours, but then you also have to send me the homework, which is the thing we were just covering before. So, jumping into the question part. Here. So here are 3 questions I have received, but again, if you have any more than that, feel free to ask them now. First question, what kind of floor is needed? So floor work, as you may have seen, is usually performed on a wooden floor, some form of a slidey floor, that would be even. And this is on an ideal world, right? What really matters more, especially for this first level, in which there will be a few elements, a few movements in which we slide, but not so many, is more the space. You want 4 square meter, and it can be in any shape, but 4 square meter is a good start. Less than that, and you will be a bit space constrained. More than that, awesome. Now, does it have to be slidey? Not necessarily. For instance, in the previous training, one of the members, one of the students, was working out, training in a gym. In a gym, when you see sometimes there's this rubber form of floor to receive the load of the weights when they're being dropped on the floor without damaging the floor. This is absolutely not slidey. It's quite grippy. It doesn't mean that you couldn't do the training at all. It just means that for maybe 3 movements out of dozens, if not more than 100, we didn't slide. So we were more on the spot because of the friction involved with the floor. For the first level, I wouldn't be concerned with that. We will find ways around this. And if you were to be in a situation where you're like, well, I hear you, Vincent, but I'm really not sure if I have the space or if my floor is suitable. Well, just, you have my email, send me a picture. And by now you know me. Like, I won't say, yeah, it's gonna be fine. If it's not fine, I will tell you it's not fine, and it's not for you, and it's fine this way. I'm not trying to quote unquote sell you into something just because, I want this to be a good fit as well. And when it comes to a few movements we have to slide for, we will adapt. But then if your floor is, because again, floor work can be even done on concrete, don't get me wrong. I want you to be comfortable in terms of space and the softness of a surface on which you're going to practice. That's pretty much it. 4 square meters. That's what you want to remember. And then get in touch with me if you're not sure about whether or not your floor suits. Then I have this question, quite often, which is, I live in Canada. What's the story with the class times? There is no class times. I'm sending you a weekly program, as you have seen in the platform I just showed you, and you consume that, you watch that, you do it, you train whenever you want. It can be 4 hours in one go. It can be more than 4 hours, by the way, of course. It can be a lot of small 30-minute-ish session, or anything in between. Again, we have a call together for us to figure that out if you think you need my help with it, but you are free to structure your training as the way you want. I'm going to show you just now how it looks like on a weekly basis. Before that, one important question I have received as well, which is, I think, absolutely normal to ask. What if I have to stop? These things are reopening now, Vincent. We've been stuck in a lockdown for 1 year. I think I deserve a break, and I think you do as well. If you already know that you have some holidays coming, you can get in touch as well. Because if it's a 1 to 2 week holiday, then we can put in place systems for you to catch up, and it won't impact that much your progress. If it's longer than that, or let's say if you have an injury, or let's say if life just happens, and that happened to 2 of my students in the previous edition, then what we tend to do, and again, I'm saying this to you because this is a non-public presentation and more of an intimate chat, we put your membership on hold. And then whenever there is another edition of this training, you get to resume where you left it, because that wouldn't be normal. I mean, when life happens, it's out of our control. And so I don't want you to, let's say you feel that your knee is a bit dodgy, and I don't want you to go back training when you're not ready just because you are seeing that train getting further and further from you. I'd rather you take the time to recover, make the foundation stronger once you have recovered, and then jump on the next train. So with this, rest assured, it's not like if something happens to you, you lost your investment. And for that matter, 1 or 2 people, therefore, will jump on that next upcoming course. In terms of dates, this Tuesday, we're closing this Tuesday, midnight, 1 minute past midnight, right? We're closing the doors for the registrations. And the reason for that being, I'm going to coach you personally. So I cannot have this training, you understand, this course open all the time. I'm going to teach everyone in this group, which therefore cannot be a gigantic group at all. It's going to be very, very a handful of people. And I'm going to follow every one of you week after week for 12 weeks. And that's why I have to open the doors and close. Therefore, the next time this will be on will probably be at the end of the year, and that will be the last time for 2021. So Tuesday, we close the doors for registration. And you will have a calendar. You can book your call with me to tell me more about your movement goals, what specifically you want to learn, rather, if you have any trauma or injury history I should be aware of, and your schedule, so that we can start figuring out if you're more the kind of person who's going to train 4 hours in a row or 30 minutes here and there. And I will help you figure out how you can make the most out of this course. And then next Saturday, so that's Saturday the 5th, I think, the first module of week 1 is released and you start working. Then what happens? So this is pretty much the structure of every week. If you start on the right side, you will see that on Saturday, a new module is released, starting from next Saturday, module 1. And then you have from Saturday to the next Friday to train. You can train as much as you want. Sometimes you will be a bit more time constrained, so you do the minimum or the most important, and it will guide you in knowing what this is. You film yourself, you put your video together, and as well, I have videos to help you do that if this is your first time, and you send that homework to me so that the next Saturday, I can review your progress and tell you, wow, this is awesome. Forget about this. Do the spicier, more advanced variation. Look at this though. Look at that though. How can we improve this? It's pretty much as if I was with you in the room coaching you. That's the idea of coaching. And every week for 12 weeks, that's going to be the structure. You get your module on Saturday, and then you have a whole week to digest the content of that module, digest my feedback from the previous week, train, record, and send. And on Saturday, I review every video one by one. I give you exactly the advice that you need. And at the end of that review, I will obviously know where the group is at. And collectively, I will, whenever it's required, go to my studio and record new drills that you inspired me. So it's really this, it's tailored this way. If I see that one of my tutorials is not clicking with some of you, I'm not going to say to you, resubmit, if you know what I mean. I'm not going to say to you, keep going at it until it clicks. I'm going to be questioning what wasn't clear and explaining it through a different angle, because that's what it is to teach you. It's not monkey see, monkey do. And again, chances are none of you is going to make excuses. If you were to say, just trying to dodge the bullet and make excuses around something that you don't quite like, it's not going to happen. I would say it to you. I would say, no, you just have to insist a bit more with this drill. But whenever something is actually not clear, and which happens, which is just normal, I go and I film new drills. And sometimes it also means I'm inspired with what I see to take different avenues. Same thing. I go and I film a bunch of new drills. That plus your individual coaching review, plus, and that's super important, don't minimize that, being able to see what I say to other people who are going through the same curriculum as you are is extremely useful to learn even better and to teach even better. So this is also, I'm not even mentioning it, but it's quite a powerful resource to factor in your learning curve. And if you don't have time to watch them all, same thing. You will be able to watch them once later on, whenever you have the time. And I think that's pretty much it. Yes, if you're watching this, you are watching this on YouTube, you will have the link in the description. Now, what I'm going to put, before I forget, in the comment section is the little voucher I was mentioning in one of the very first emails I've sent about this training. I'm going to put it again here. I have extended it so that this voucher works on both prices. Remember that you can book your spot and pay in one go or pay in installments. If you use the code, I'm going to put it right here, the coupon TRIBE, when you check out, it's going to take off 10%. Oh, sorry, it's here. It's going to take off 10 TRIBE in capital letters. I take off 10% of the training just as a thank you for watching this and expressing an interest in this training. Something that is noting as well, that is worth noting as well, is that if you need different payment plans, then you just have to get in touch with me. Just because it's not there doesn't mean it's not possible. Okay, so I have people sometimes spreading the payment over many more months, and that's absolutely okay. I don't want anyone to put themselves into any kind of financial whatever situation post-COVID. We can work around things. You have the link to the page, the description page in the comments. And again, if you use the TRIBE coupon, it will take 10% off. And if you need something a bit more individualized when it comes to spreading the payment, you just have to tell me. Okay? Without further comments, I think that's pretty much it. I don't see any more questions. So I wish you, if you have any after that, you can simply send them to me. If you see a new notification for a new live on Monday, if I decide to do it, then you may or not attend it, but the gist of it has already been said, right? The difference being I will be coming from a place where I'm not going to assume that people know about Floorwork and what I do because they haven't been either working with me nor receiving my emails. Okay, so don't necessarily attend it unless you really want to hear my voice again. I hope this was clear. I wish you an excellent weekend, hopefully just as sunny as ours, and hopefully see you next week. Any question in between, simply send me a message and I will get back to you.